U.S. Marine snipers couldn't hit the target until a simple woman showed them how. The screen fades from black to the golden light of a California sunrise. Rows of barracks, flags fluttering in the wind, and the distant echo of gunfire from the range. The rhythmic call of cadence drills echoes through the morning air. The U.S. Marine Corps teaches precision. Every breath, every heartbeat, every trigger pull, all must be in harmony. But sometimes even the best trained soldiers can lose their aim. That's what happened in the fall of 2023 at Camp Pendleton, where a team of elite Marine snipers, some of the sharpest shooters in the Corps, suddenly couldn't hit their target, and no one could explain why. It started on a Tuesday morning. The snipers had gathered for their quarterly qualification, a test that decides who stays sharp and who's sent back for retraining. Sergeant First Class Daniel Ross, 32, stood behind the firing line, hands behind his back. A man carved by discipline, steady, serious, the kind of Marine whose eyes spoke louder than words. Beside him, his spotter, Corporal James Hawk Hawkins, adjusted the scope, his brow furrowed. "Ross, wind's good, distance checked. You've done this 100 times, Hawk. Send it." The rifle cracks, echoing across the barren range. The smell of gunpowder fills the air. Miss low and right. Adjust again. Another shot, another miss. By noon, they'd burned through 3 boxes of rounds, and not one perfect grouping on target. Inside the observation hut, Captain Alan Mercer, the training officer, watched in disbelief. His jaw tightened as he lowered the binoculars. 3 months ago, this team could split a playing card at 800 yards. What the hell happened? Beside him, an older warrant officer sighed. Could be the new lot of ammo, could be nerves, or maybe they've forgotten who they are. Mercer doesn't answer. He just stares through the glass, watching a line of snipers who suddenly seemed like strangers. That afternoon, a civilian truck pulled up near the edge of the range. An old pickup, dust-covered, dented, its engine sputtering like it barely held together. From it stepped a woman, mid-40s, wearing faded jeans, a sun-bleached ball cap, and boots that looked older than some of the Marines on base. She walked with a quiet confidence, not arrogance, just ease. "Range control officer. Ma'am, this is a restricted area." "Woman, I know, I'm cleared, here for maintenance." She flashed a small laminated badge, Civilian Contractor Ballistics Maintenance Division. Her name Evelyn Hayes. Inside the range shed, she examined the racks of rifles, M40A6 sniper systems, clean, polished, perfect by appearance. She picked one up, sighted it, and frowned. "When's the last time you checked your bedding torque?" The Marines looked at each other. "We clean in zero before every qual." Cleaning isn't the same as tuning. You can polish a blade all day, but if the handle's loose, it won't cut straight. She reached for a torque wrench, methodically checking each screw and barrel fitting. Every rifle she touched, off by a fraction of an inch. To the untrained eye, nothing. But to her, everything. Later, over coffee in the maintenance tent, Ross approached her. "You talk like you've done this before." "Once." He waited, but she said no more. What he didn't know, and what the base would soon learn, was that Evelyn Hayes wasn't just a maintenance contractor. 20 years earlier, she'd been one of the first female civilian instructors for the Marine Corps marksmanship program, a ballistics savant whose understanding of wind, distance, and motion bordered on instinct. She'd trained snipers who later became legends, until an accident on a range in Arizona ended her career. A misfire, a life lost, and a silence that followed her ever since. By Thursday, the range was alive again. Hayes stood beside the Marines, clipboard in hand. Captain Mercer wasn't pleased. "I don't like civilians meddling in Marine business." "Then don't call it meddling, call it fixing." She pointed to a target 1,000 yards away. Wind's moving southeast, 9 knots steady. Mirage is pulling right, not left. You're compensating the wrong way. The captain gave her a look of irritation, but Ross's eyes lit with realization. She's right. He recalibrated, adjusted, and fired. The bullet struck dead center. Perfect. The range went silent for a moment, the kind of silence that carries awe. By the next morning, everyone on base was talking about the woman who fixed the snipers. But not all the talk was kind. Some Marines whispered that she got lucky. Others said she was just showing off. And Captain Mercer, he wasn't done watching her. He called her into his office. You come in here, start changing things without authorization. You realize that, right? With respect, Captain, I didn't change anything. I reminded your men what they already knew. And what's that? That skill fades faster than pride. The words hit hard. Mercer dismissed her coldly, but he didn't forget them. That weekend, the snipers were assigned to a live operations simulation, a joint exercise with Navy SEALs and Air Force JTAC units. It was meant to simulate real combat conditions: fog, crosswinds, shifting elevation, and stress. Hayes wasn't supposed to be there. But as the operation began, Ross requested her presence as a range observer. Mercer reluctantly agreed. The hills outside the base were blanketed in mist. Targets, steel silhouettes, hidden among rocks and brush. Each Marine sniper took position. Ross lay prone, breathing slow, eyes steady. He could feel Hayes watching from behind. Remember, don't fight the wind, dance with it. He exhaled, squeezed the trigger, bang. The steel rang out in the distance. Perfect hit. Then another, and another. Soon, every Marine on that line was hitting dead center. After the exercise, Captain Mercer approached Hayes again. This time, no hostility, just curiosity. You ever think of coming back, teaching again? She looked at him for a long moment. I did once, but the Corps taught me something. Sometimes the best teachers aren't the ones in uniform. He nodded almost respectfully. Then she added quietly, more to herself than to him. Besides, some things you can't come back from. That night, as the Marines celebrated their scores, Ross sat by the range fire, staring into the embers. Hayes joined him, hands wrapped around a tin cup of coffee. You lost someone, didn't you? She didn't answer right away. The fire crackled between them. Yeah, a student, young, too eager to prove himself. I missed a defect in the rifle's chamber. It misfired. She took a slow breath. After that, I stopped teaching. Figured maybe the world didn't need me near rifles anymore. But you came back. I didn't come back for redemption. I came back because your rifles were crying. Ross smiled faintly. Every weapon has a voice. You just forgot how to listen. Days later, a supply audit revealed something unexpected. The ammunition batches used by the sniper team were defective. Inferior powder consistency. Microfractures in the casings. Someone had been signing off substandard rounds as approved. And the signature? Captain Alan Mercer. When questioned, Mercer confessed he'd been pressured to approve them by a private supplier under threat of losing funding for the base's range program. He turned himself in, quietly, before the story reached Washington. Weeks passed. The range was restored to full function. The sniper team's accuracy soared, but Hayes was gone. One morning, her truck simply wasn't there anymore. In her place, Ross found a small metal box on his shooting bench. Inside, a single spent cartridge, polished to a shine. Etched on its brass, "Listen." 6 months later, during a marksmanship competition in Quantico, the Marine sniper team took top honors. When the announcer asked Ross how they recovered from their slump, he simply smiled. Someone reminded us that shooting isn't about pulling the trigger. It's about patience, presence, and purpose. A year later, Ross drove through a small desert town outside Yuma, Arizona. There, in a modest shooting range behind a diner, he saw a familiar pickup. And beside it, Evelyn Hayes, teaching a group of teenage cadets. Her movements were calm, patient, precise. Ross parked, stepped out, and walked up quietly. "Didn't think I'd find you here. You Marines never do. You just hit what's in front of you." They shared a laugh. Then Ross handed her the polished cartridge she'd once left behind. "Thought you might want this back." She looked at it, then shook her head. "No, you keep it, because now you know what it means to listen." Montage of Marines training at dawn. Precision shots echoing across the range. Slow-motion footage of rifles cycling, hands steady, eyes calm. A simple woman's shadow lingers at the edge of memory, unseen but present. In every profession, there comes a moment when skill alone isn't enough. When pride falters and truth demands to be heard. For the Marines of Camp Pendleton, that truth came not from a commanding officer, but from a woman who had nothing left to prove, except that precision begins with humility. And sometimes, the best aim doesn't come from the eye. It comes from the heart. True courage isn't in battle, but in standing for what's right, even when you stand alone. And sometimes the quietest teacher leaves the loudest echo.